Imagine you've just spent your entire life savings on a ticket to paradise. You were promised a land of golden mountains, crystal clear rivers, and a capital city with grand stone buildings. You saw the maps. You held the official Poyaisian currency in your hands. You even met the prince himself. But as the fog clears on the Mosquito Coast, you realize there is no city. There are no golden mines. There is only a wall of impenetrable jungle and the deafening sound of 1,000,000 insects waiting to feed on your flesh. You haven't just moved to a new country. You've been sold a lie so big, it's almost impossible to believe. How did one man convince the smartest investors in London to buy land in a nation that literally did not exist? And more importantly, how did he almost get away with it twice? To understand the scam, you first have to meet the man. Meet Gregor MacGregor. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like a hero. Walking through the streets of London in a custom-made uniform, dripping in gold braids and medals, MacGregor claimed to be a decorated general who fought alongside Simón Bolívar. He called himself the Cacique of Poyais, the sovereign prince of a lush territory in the Bay of Honduras. At this time, London was obsessed with the New World. Everyone wanted a piece of the next big thing in South America. MacGregor wasn't just selling land. He was selling a dream of infinite wealth to a society blinded by greed. The craft of the fake nation. MacGregor was a master of detail. He knew that for a lie to be believable, it needed proof. He didn't just tell stories. He built an entire ecosystem of deception. The book. He published a 350-page guidebook under a pseudonym, describing Poyais in scientific detail, right down to the types of wood in the forests and the purity of the gold in the rivers. The maps. He hired professional engravers to create intricate, beautiful maps of a country that was actually just a patch of uninhabitable swamp. The currency. He opened a Poyaisian legation in London and started exchanging hard British pounds for colorful, official-looking Poyaisian banknotes. People weren't just buying land. They were applying for government jobs in Poyais. They were buying commissions in the Poyaisian army. Even the Scottish Highlanders, MacGregor's own kin, sold their ancestral farms to follow him to this promised land. But while the band played and the champagne flowed at the Poyaisian embassy, two ships, the Honduras packet and the Kennersley Castle, were already crossing the Atlantic, carrying 250 hopeful souls toward a death trap. You might be wondering, how? How could wealthy bankers, seasoned soldiers, and cautious families fall for something so transparently fake? The answer lies in a psychological cocktail that MacGregor stirred to perfection. First, there was the halo effect. MacGregor was a war hero, or so he said. In the eyes of the public, a man with that many medals couldn't possibly be a liar. We tend to believe that if someone is successful in one area, they are trustworthy in all others. Second, he exploited the fear of missing out. FOMO. In the 1820s, South American bonds were the Bitcoin of the era. Everyone was getting rich off Colombian or Chilean stocks. MacGregor made Poyais seem like the last golden opportunity. If you didn't buy now, you'd be poor forever while your neighbor became a millionaire. But the most dangerous weapon in his arsenal was complexity. By creating a 350-page book and a central bank, he made the lie too big to question. When a lie is simple, we spot it. When a lie is an entire bureaucratic system, we assume someone else has already checked the facts. But while London was debating interest rates, 250 people were about to find out that the halo effect doesn't protect you from starvation. In September 1822, the first ship, The Honduras packet set sail from London. On board were doctors, lawyers, and farmers. They weren't just passengers. They were the new official citizens of Poyais. They carried with them agricultural tools, high-end furniture, and chests full of worthless Poyaisian currency. The journey took 2 months. 2 months of dreaming about the mansions and the prince who would meet them at the docks. When they finally dropped anchor, the silence was terrifying. There was no port, no customs house, no welcoming committee, just a stretch of barren sand and a wall of vines so thick you couldn't see 5 feet inside. The captain of the ship, realizing something was horribly wrong, dumped the passengers and their luggage on the beach and sailed away. The settlers tried to stay positive. "Perhaps we are just in the wrong spot," they told each other. They built makeshift huts out of their mahogany furniture. They tried to plant Scottish seeds in the tropical sand, only for them to rot instantly. Then, the rain started. The tropical storms of the Mosquito Coast are unlike anything in Europe. Within weeks, their clothes were disintegrating. Their food supplies were swarming with maggots. And then came the invisible killer, yellow fever. One by one, the settlers began to die. The official physician of Poyais, who had bought his title from MacGregor, was one of the first to perish. He couldn't cure a disease that didn't exist in the textbooks he brought from London. As the bodies piled up on the beach, a second ship appeared on the horizon. More victims, more mouths to feed. But as they realized the prince had sent them to their deaths, a question began to circulate among the dying. Where is Gregor MacGregor right now? Of the 250 people who sailed for Poyais, fewer than 50 made it back alive. When the rescue ship docked in London, the sight was haunting. Skeletal figures, yellowed by fever, haunted by the loss of their families, stepped onto the pier. The news hit London like a sledgehammer. The Prince of Poyais was a fraud. The bonds were worthless paper. The land was a graveyard. You would think this was the end for MacGregor. You would think the police were waiting at his door. But this is where the story goes from a tragedy to an absurdity. MacGregor didn't hide. He didn't apologize. Instead, he published letters in the newspapers claiming that the settlers had mismanaged the colony and that the whole disaster was the fault of the ship captains. He was so charismatic, so unshakable in his lie, that some of the survivors still believed in him. But as the legal pressure began to mount, the cazique knew the walls were closing in. In the dead of night, he crossed the English Channel. His destination? Paris. If you think a man would stop after killing 200 people, you don't know Gregor MacGregor. Within months of arriving in France, he was back at it. New language, same scam. He began courted French investors, claiming Poyais was a liberal utopia, ready for French culture. He even managed to convince a French trading company to invest 300,000 francs. But the French bureaucracy was different from the British free-for-all market. When MacGregor applied for passports for a new group of French settlers, the French government looked at the map and asked a simple question: where exactly is this country? They sent investigators. They checked with the Spanish crown, and they realized Poyais was a phantom. For the first time in his career, MacGregor was thrown into a cold, dark cell in La Force prison. But even behind bars, he was planning his next move. Because the most shocking part of his life wasn't the scam itself. It was how he died. After being acquitted in a French court, thanks to his incredible ability to blame his subordinates, MacGregor eventually returned to Venezuela. In a twist that feels like a bad movie script, he was welcomed back as a revolutionary hero. He was granted a general's pension. He lived out his days in comfort, walking the streets of Caracas as a respected elder, never spending a single day in prison for the 200 lives he ended in the swamps of Honduras. Why does this story matter today? Gregor MacGregor wasn't just a con man. He was a pioneer of the fake-it-till-you-make-it culture. He understood that people don't buy products, they buy certainty. In a world of chaos, the man who speaks the loudest and wears the brightest uniform often wins. Gregor MacGregor sold a country that didn't exist. Today, people sell get-rich-quick schemes and guaranteed investments every day on your feed. If you found this story fascinating, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what is the most modern version of the Poyais scam you've seen?